Hello, everybody. It's the Warm, back again with Raging Loop. Let's have a talk, shall we? Last time, quite a lot happened, and so I've decided we're going to have a little extended discussion here at the beginning of this video. Now, this probably won't be a terribly long discussion or anything, but there was a lot that happened that I think we need to go over, so I felt it only right to address it. And I wanted to go back to the menu just, so that there would be some music and so I wouldn't be just in silence talking about this. But there was another reason too. And we'll get to that. I'm not going to start with it. I'll leave you hanging, but there's something on this screen here that we're looking at that I think we're going to talk about. First of all, there's a few things I want to address. First things first. I just want to say, I really like how, the story was structured in that I really feel like I could have gotten the answer if I was just able to put the pieces together. So, in particular, talking about Chiemi being one of the wolves, talking about Kaori's message and realizing it was a fake. At the time, I was having such a difficulty with... I was thinking, well, the figures must mean something, and it would seem to indicate that Rokako was, whether the numbers were 1 and 3 or just 4, Rokako would have to be implicated regardless, either being a wolf or being a wolf pawn, essentially. And none of it just made sense to me, and the issue was, I didn't take the next step, which is to realize, well, yes, it didn't make sense because it was faked, And so, although I wasn't able to take that final step there, I think it's great that I could see that there could be people who do take that step and are able to realize the truth. I feel like this has happened before, like in 999 and some other games I've played, where I get the information and I have all the pieces. I just can't put them all together at the very end, So, but in retrospect, it is a bit satisfying to see it make sense. And this game, I think we were talking about it a bit in the comments. This particular route here is just mind games within mind games that we saw, and it was just. Because let's see, so it was, the poisoning of Haruaki was caused by Mochi, and it makes sense because he was able to. He said that he extracted the poison from a plant in liquid form, and of course he has the knowledge to do that because he's an Asato, and and then. Of course, going along with the faking of the message with Kaori, one of the questions I had was, why didn't they just get rid of the message if they found it? Well, of course, as Haruaki said during the discussion, well, they probably overheard Kaori and Yoshitsugu talking about it. So if Yoshitsugu didn't find a message, he'd be suspicious, and probably investigate from that angle or something. Or maybe they're not afraid of that. Maybe they just thought because they knew there was a message that they could use that as an opportunity in order to mess with the humans. Yeah, so rather than maybe being afraid of... Well, in that case, it was a misstep by the wolves to try and do that. Yeah, but it's we can speculate on the minutia, but overall it's just it was a pretty fun thing to hear. Well, in the moment it was No, it was still fun. The terrifying part came after that. So, let's talk a bit about. Oh, okay. So first thing, well, not first things first. Second thing I want to talk about. Last time I was kind of going with the flow a bit. You know, I didn't want to stop in the middle of the whole scene that was happening. But there were a few moments during the events that were occurring, particularly when the wolves started their rampage, where I just wanted to, like, yell out, "Well, that's unfair." That's unsporting. That's not, it's basically one of the unique things that's happening in this game of Wolf or Mafia or whatever, where basically, if the wolves are so inclined, they can just say, "Screw the rules, we're gonna kill everyone," So, but interestingly, we did get the one comment from Chiemi. She seemed to be expecting that she would be killed by corruption at the end of the day, even if she'd be the only one left, So that's interesting. But yeah, depending on who you got as the wolves, they'll just go buck wild if they feel like they need to or want to or have to, any sort of thing like that. So obviously that's going to be our next big obstacle here as Haruaki. Whether or how do we deal with wolves that are absolutely willing and able to just go on a rampage, Because again, we have to play by the rules. We gotta hang one at a time. That's the thing. So how are we gonna be able to navigate this? Tie them up or something? How would that even work? If you know who the wolves are, could you say, like, let's say we pick Mochi to hang, and then we grab Chiemi, tie her up. Would she be... If the wolf is unable to act, I guess they don't get to kill in the next night, because we need 2 nights to do this in order to take out Mochi and then Chiemi. I don't know how we're gonna navigate this. And that sort of leads me into... Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is we're gonna start getting into... There's gonna be a supernatural conversation here, and then there's gonna be a conversation about characters, okay? So first things first, which do I want to talk about here? I think I want to talk about character first. So obviously, the person we have to talk about the most right now is Chiemi. And so here's the thing. We know from the case with Yasunaga, with Tai, becoming a wolf means you know the true story, the supposed true story of Yasumizu, yes. But there has to be something more. I think we sort of came to that conclusion because Rikako, I think, knows the true story too. Like, she's heard of it from the other heads, the family heads. But that doesn't make her suddenly want to go on a killing spree, right? She just knows of that story. So there has to be something extra that when someone becomes a wolf that really convinces them to go on a killing spree. However, in this route that we've got going on right here, we have something peculiar occur, and that is the mutilation of the bodies. Now, I have to admit, I was thinking the same thing as Haruaki, in that I was thinking that this was because of Mochi, Mochi is, how do I put this? Well, he is peculiar. He doesn't think the same way as others do. He's not equipped well for being in the socially, he's not developed that way. You know, his mind works a certain way, and it can be odd for everyone else, essentially. And so I had a similar idea to Haruwaki, where I thought, well, what if this somewhat, odd person, if that gets corrupted and suddenly they're given leeway to do whatever they want and feel no moral issue with killing people, if that mad genius gets unleashed, what occurs? And we even got a comment from Mochi. It was when he was in front of the mansion after he presumably killed Kinosuke, where it was something, he said something like, you're a fun corpse or something, or something like that. That obviously, his madness has been unleashed in that way, in a murderous way. However, I want to say, again, I'm not going to be saying this is definitive. I'm saying this feels like a possibility to me. After that scene with seeing Mochi in the body of Kyo, Chiemi kills her fellow wolf. Alright? Now, this strikes me as odd, Obviously, Tai and Yasunaga were on the team the first time. And I'm pretty dang sure the game, of Werewolf or Mafia, doesn't include a part where the wolves have to kill each other. It's just the wolves win if they kill all the humans. So Chiemi killing Mochi seems completely extra and unnecessary. And then we get her comments about how, she's really actually wanted to kill people or kill someone for a long time. And she thought this was a perfect opportunity to do so, coming back to Yasumizu. So the idea that's kind of floating around my head right now is, I'm not gonna dismiss that immediately. I think there's a possibility that that's actually true. That Chiemi might be some kind of psychopath this whole time. Like, even in the first main route, And that's part of why I think Haruwaki was feeling so betrayed. Now, obviously, we know there's a few angles to go at this here. We know that Haru, another person who seems to have mental issues, most likely due to the deaths of her parents, as well as we know now that she walked to Yasumizu during the previous feast, the one that Kanzo described. And so, who knows what she saw then. But whatever it was, it left her with this condition where people thought she was possessed by a wolf, and she apparently can see this god figure. Chiemi sees it too, or knows about it. It's this weird connection that these two share that's somewhat odd. So Chiemi seems to have this strange issue with this god being. And it was even clarified in this event that occurred that we just saw. It was clarified, I think it was a line from Chiemi, that Shinai-sama and this character that she calls God are not the same. They are different. In fact, at one point, it looked like she wanted to kill this figure she called God, This brings me to the next part of this discussion about Chiemi. If you look at the screen right now, we're on the main menu, and look what we have here. This was brought to my attention by Tuli Cannell once again. I always see it when I open up the game, but it was good to be reminded of it. We got a scene in the last episode where Rikako sacrificed herself to take a stabbing from Chemi in our place, in Haruaki's place. And as Chemi and Rokako were struggling with one another, Rokako grabbed at her, what would it be, collar, and she found a pendant, or some kind of, pendant or symbol were the words I think used. And what do we have here on the screen? We, in fact, have a pendant with 3 wolf symbols on it. So, what is this pendant's significance? Well, it has 3 wolves on it. What does that mean? I don't know. Why does Chemi have it? When did she get it? I don't know. Now, I have one thought that this is just, you know, if this was mentioned somewhere else and I'm just misremembering, you know, I don't think this pendant has been mentioned ever. But here's like a crazy theory that just came up in my head when I thought about the pendant for a little while. So obviously there's supernatural craziness occurring, right? What if there's something could happen where, I don't know. Remember, we need something extra to occur to make a wolf, right? They get told the true story of Yasumizu, right? But then that doesn't explain the murderous rampage. So Haruaki has suspected we need something else. What if this pendant is the something else? What if the wolves each get a pendant or something that they have and keep on their person or something, and that in some way, I don't know, drives them insane or causes this murderousness to occur? I don't know. I'm spitballing here. Obviously, when Rokako saw it, she seems to have recognized it, and her statement afterward was, "That's a corruption I can't take in," you know? So obviously, in terms of the supernatural, this is something pretty heavy, you know, even if we don't fully understand it. At least from in the view of Rokako, it's something quite extreme. Yeah, but yeah, taking a few steps back, if Chami really was crazy this whole time, then that explains the brutal nature of the deaths we've seen so far with Haru and with Kaori. The way Haru was smashed up and Kaori was cut. If Chami really is this murderous psychopath this whole time, then maybe it's just her, you know, her inclinations and unleashed. Because we saw in the previous main route with Yasunaga and Tai, the wolves can absolutely just kill you quickly. They don't have to mutilate you, so this is obviously something extra. I would say it could probably be a bit of both Mochi and Chami together, you know, doing this sort of thing, maybe mutilating together, but... Or maybe they did, you know, they said, "Oh, you can do this one, Mochi, but I get to do the next one." We know that apparently Mochi promised her that she would be able to kill Haruaki, so who knows? Who knows what sort of conversations they've been having behind the scenes. One thing I gotta say, though, is poor Mamiya, right? Not only is she stuck in the village, has her partner killed, but then she becomes a wolf with two, you know, this may seem rude, but 2 crazy people, essentially, you know? And it makes me really curious as to why, you know, looking back, remember she got killed by corruption? Mamiya did? Makes me very curious as to how that occurred. Like, maybe seeing Chami, or Mochi, or both, mutilating Haru was enough to, you know, drive Mamiya insane, but not in the same way as those two. And she then, I don't know, tried to stop them, or it's hard to say, because how does the wolf get a corruption death in that instance. We know, presumably, the wolf gets a corruption, at least from what Chiemi said, because she killed more than one person in a day. She was assuming that the corruption was going to get her that night. So, what could Mamiya possibly have done to have deserved a corruption death? That's my question. Still don't know. Well, I think it's safe to say now, I think it was 2 or 3 episodes ago, I said I was kind of in Team Chiemi. Well, if my idea of her being a real psychopath is true, then obviously I've been catapulted over to Team Rokako now, because I truly think Rokako is probably MVP of this whole route. She was, she did the whole plan with Mako. She was able to communicate it pretty well. She was able to save Haruaki. She just went above and beyond, and so truly, she's my MVP, and she is slowly I'd say she's taken the lead in the best girl department, I feel like, which is so incredible considering how she was lowering on my scale just a few episodes ago. So let's talk about now some supernatural stuff. So we have more and more evidence, I feel, that the looping phenomenon may not be just confined to Haruaki. We've had the god figure, the god that both Haru and Chiemi seem to talk about. We've had that god directly address Haruaki now a few times. And that entity, whatever it is, seems to be aware of the looping. But that entity is not the only one. Now, we've had Rokako make a mention of we shall rise again, something like that. So could she also be aware of that? Maybe. And I think, I know Tuli Cannell has talked about this. He seems to think that Chiemi has said some things that also may imply that we're not the only one who may be aware, or at least maybe not aware, but maybe also suffering the consequences of the looping. Like with Chiemi, there are some things where, like, she's saying she's bound to Yasumizu. Like, just some of the language she used is a bit strong, you know, more than just regular speech. And obviously I'm very curious if this pendant is a singular thing or not. I'm trying to think back about what else was said. I can't recall any specific things at the moment, but I do think all this sort of the idea that multiple people may be aware of the loop or being affected by the loop, I feel like that gives a bit more credence toward the idea that the true story of Yasumizu, you know, where the idea is we are all Yomi Bito. I think if it is the case that this looping phenomena is affecting other people, not just us, I think that gives credence to that story. That we're all trapped in this never-ending sort of cycle. And so maybe it could be the case that we are all dead and are just reliving this sort of nightmare scenario for some reason. I'm not sure why. Um, if that ends up being the case, then this looks very bad for Haruaki, you know, in his objective of trying to rescue everyone. I'm not sure we're going to be able to rescue people from hell, essentially. But, you know, we're going to give it a shot anyway, I feel like. May as well. I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover, at least most of it. After this, we're going to be doing a little housekeeping, okay? We're going to be doing our hint corner, of course. But then I do want to go back and get the key for Haru. I know we skipped by that one a while back. So I want to go back and get that before moving on. So we'll do that. We'll watch the hint corner. Then we will get Haru's key. And then I'll look at how long we've been going before deciding how much further I want to go. So let's go back. Also, something that's interesting to me is the fact that that was a bad ending we got. You know, we got a hint corner. It was a bad ending, even though it was such a whole crazy situation that unfolded. That's quite interesting to me, for some reason. Well, let's get back in there. Okay. Let's see. Things seem to be going all right. Let's do this. All right, sheep. Give me your wisdom.
やっちまったな大将。だがここは不可避だから気にすんな。
Well, that's good to know.
この必定結末を回避できるようヒントを教えておくぜ。今回のバッドエンド19題して狼の最後っぺで全滅についてだが、解決法としてはこのオチを見た上でこうならないように前の時点で手を打つってことになる。今回手に入ったキー15によって前の時点の道が開く。そこに具体的な場所は5基地の9心を決めよだな。以後の展開はガラッと変わるぜ。
I'm sure that is the case, yes.
ルート基地はもうすぐ完走だ。長かったが報われるといいな。
So I'm curious, looking at this chart here, and so here's the thing. I'd have to go back to the main menu. If you look at the album, how many well, obviously I could just, there seems to be, if each of those pictures at the top, you know, the big rectangle pictures, if each of those are like a main route ending, then we have a whole lot of game left, man. I'm kind of curious. Although, how many keys do we have now? It's kind of a meta way to know how far in the game we are, I guess. Only 20 in total. And it looks like we have about half or so, maybe more. So surely there can't be, like, I can imagine maybe one final main route after this, but we don't have all the pictures yet. That's, I don't know, we'll have to see.
つうわけで今回はここまで。次も元気に死んでこい。そういう夢だったってわけだ。次はもっとうまくやれ。羊が1匹、羊が2匹。
Okay. 511 Sunday. Let's go to the chart. Raging loop, huh? Okay, we are going to go to... Investigation 2, I think. Here. Haru. I want to do that one. Human. I was told about the wolf symbol now, so I think I'm able to recognize it now. All right, let's see this. Truth of the girl. After obtaining the power of the snake in the feast, I investigated Haru. She is a human. Judging from her change in behavior, she probably isn't the badger this time. That's a load off my mind. Okay. Now we got all the keys I think we can get. We are going to go ahead and get back to where we were. Voting 2 has a branch here. What was this one? Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, you know what? Let's keep up with the housekeeping. This was probably the bad end, right? Let's do this. Instead of moving on right away, we're gonna get this bad end, you know, just for completion's sake. Let's see this. Okay, so doubting others was essentially my creed. That's because I believed it was more logical to trust only myself and take responsibility for the outcome over bearing the risk of trusting others. When I came back to that rule, it was trusting Rikago-san as openly as I had so far that was the exception for me. It made more sense to doubt her, and so I said it.
リカ子さんの方が信じられるとは
Now,
現時点では言えない。
with the power of hindsight, we can now see that this is an absolutely terrible move for several reasons.
票を取れ。
待ってください。この二人のどちらが正しいかは今日のカゴを使って調べますから、今日は待ってください。
じゃあ誰殺すんだよ。あ？俺か？鴨志田か？それとも知恵ねえか？
殺す気か？ハッサン。春明さん。嘘でしょ？いいのです。春明様。
リカ子さんいけない。
君、何を？リカ子さんは一体何をやろうとしてるんだ？
自己犠牲精神なんていらない。
いいのです。皆様がおっしゃる通り、私は怪しいでしょう。私は人ですが、私がくくられても皆様は狼に勝つべきです。私はこれ以上休みずにいても皆様に尽くせない。退場することで最後の休みずへのご奉公といたします。
リカ子さん。
不賛し
Takumi-san shouted louder than ever before, shutting me up.
お前がその女を助けたかったなら、その女を信じなきゃダメだった。お前がそうできなかった時点で、その女が助かることはなくなった。
そんな。
お前がそう言わないってことは、 その女が生きてることが人の勝利に必ずしも必要ないってことだ。少なくともお前はそう確信していない。それを否定できなかった時点でお前の選択は済んじまってるんだよ。あとは男らしく決着しろ。
Damn it. I'd never been more resentful of my adherence to my rules than I was now.
僕は植松里香子さんをくくることを提案する。
はい。
Rikako-san smiled. Why couldn't I just trust her?
縄はいりません。植松として藤吉の意味と汚れの森人として恥じるところない最後を自らなしてご覧に入れます。
She said it. Rikako-san led her own funeral procession. With a sonorous voice, she sung prayer to Shinai. She bowed to the Okiba along the way as she recited prayers and sutras. No one rebuked her, for they all understood her actions were the manifestation of her faith. For she was right. And then, we reached the cliff at the hanging pine overlooking the misty Saranaga. Rikako-san turned away from us, faced the cliff, and chanted sutras.
衆上宮部大三礼映写官位大号へ時間を問題5年南無親内大権現
Her words were directed at no one. They merely faded into the mist. She clapped her hands, held them over her head, and bowed. It was similar to a Yasumizu bow, but felt more right than that. Rikako-san looked back
さようなら
and spoke only those words. She paid no heed to the only voice that called out to her. Her black sleeves fluttered, and she threw herself into the mist. After several seconds, we heard a crunching noise from down below.
聞いちゃダメ
Chimmy covered Mako's ears. The little girl started to cry.
お前があんなことを言うから。いいな。違う。それもこれも。なんだ。なぜ、私たちは、こんなことに。
He left, while muttering to himself.
野里さん。
ほっといてやれ。あいつもあれで男だ。女が死ねば思うところもあるさ。みんな帰るぞ。
We returned to the dining hall, but all of us were caught up in a depression. There was barely anyone who wasn't feeling the loss of Tai-san, Haru-chan, and Rikako-san in any way. Excluding the old man. We didn't know if we could expect all that much from him as the spider. Mako had cried herself to sleep and had been left in her place. While Kinosuke-shi had returned to his mansion, Takumi-san and Gonzo-san were busy cleaning up Haru-chan. Aside from them, everyone else was here.
元気が出るものを作らなきゃね
Kaori-san said that with forced enthusiasm. Since her sons were still alive, she was probably in a relatively better mood than the rest of us. Incidentally, I'd stopped helping with the cleanups in the kitchen. They said it was because they couldn't put the snake at risk in the mist, but they were also probably being cautious of me, so I just sat by myself. Chemi was talking to the boys, showing her own consideration for them to lift their spirits. Her spirits. Say what? To lift her spirits. Okay. It seemed she had no intention of talking to the old wolf guy.
春明様、お話を、
The woman who always wanted to talk was gone. Before long, Kaori-san had finished making the food. Takumi-san and Kanzo-san returned from the cleanup, and we finally had our first meal of the day.
今日は気疲れしたでしょ。たっぷり食べてね、久石さん。
ありがとうございます。
The fact that I checked my bowl for something green made me realize how ill-natured I was. Oh, are we still gonna have the poisoning and now we die because Rikako's not around? Is that how this goes? Unfortunately, that was just how I was, so I would at least keep up my mask and effectively give them conscience of my own kind. I sat down, put my hands together, picked up the chopsticks, and ate the rice gruel. Like always, it was simple, beastly, yet good. I only felt that something was wrong with it a little bit later. At first, I just thought I burned my mouth or something. But suddenly, I couldn't feel my mouth at all, and after an unnatural sensation that overwhelmed my tongue and cheeks, I lost my sense of direction. My body twisted, and right as a dull pain went through my head, I fell to the floor. I'd been poisoned. I could understand that clearly, but all my processing power went into dealing with the unnatural feeling attacking my body. I couldn't see properly, I couldn't breathe or speak. Despite that, I still had a burning pain in my mouth and an urge to vomit, along with an unbearable agony. I couldn't understand what was happening to me, around me. It was probably pure chaos, but I was struggling to even breathe. It was only getting worse. A sudden, intense impact hit my back. My body jumped, and then I puked.
Fusashi! Fusashi!
My breathing stabilized for a moment, and I could hear a voice, as well as see something, a wet floor, and my own hands. However, the nausea didn't end. The spasms made me feel like my chest was turning inside out, and I soon puked again. I was beyond help. I would die in just a few minutes. Once I understood and accepted that, I found myself able to think a little clearer. This was a gamble the wolves had taken. They'd killed outside the feast. They were prepared to face the corruption. They'd poisoned the food. By doing so, they could get rid of me, or someone else.
違うわ。私じゃない。
And they could frame the crime on Kaori-san, the chef. They could also destroy the fixed majority comprising of Takumi-san, Kanzo-san, Kinosuke, Kaori-san, and I. By sacrificing one of the remaining wolves, they'd gained a big reward. I see. So the wolves were that serious. I'd been given a lethal dose of poison. There wasn't any hope for me at all, was there? How would I get past this? Hey, Rikako-san, this is a horrible thing to ask, but you wouldn't happen to know, would you? Just before my consciousness faded into the mist, I saw a hallucination of Rikako-san looking down on me with a sad smile. Game over. Sure, why not?
こいつは久々に分かりやすくやっちまったな、大将。分かりにくい？ああ、そうか。正解ルート知ってりゃ一発なんだがな。オッケー。しっかりヒント教えてやるぜ。今回のバッドエンド18、題して、 由来不明のトリカブトで毒死についてだが、この毒がどうして与えられたのかは本ルート基地の肝でもある。ぜひクライマックスを楽しみにしてくれ。じゃあどう回避するのかって話だが、回避はできねえ。そうじゃなくて治療するんだ。じゃあどうするんだって。まあシナリオチャート見りゃどこで分岐してるかわかるだろうが、あそこで死んじまったあいつがもしここで生きてればなんとかしてくれる。そういうわけで5基地の投票の選択2に戻って選択肢を選び直してみてくれ。今回はここまで。次も元気に死んでこい。
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whatever,
そうい
sheep.
う夢だったってわけだ。次はもっとうまくやれ。羊が1匹、羊が2匹。
Just a dream wanderer. Okay. Got that out of the way. Definitely pulls at your heartstrings, especially knowing, you know, just how much Rikago is putting her all into this. Okay, now... Now we can go to decision.
春明様は
Oops.
お優しいのですね。こんなことを聞いても汚らわしいネアのはしためと罵ることもされず、水をかけることもされず。ですがその優しさがつらい。いっそ足ざまに罵っていただければ諦めがつこうというもの。芹沢様のお気持ちが今なら理解できます。
Here it is. Here we are. We are... Yes, okay, we're coming up on time. So, I don't think I'm actually going to go for this ending right now, just this moment. It's kind of funny to think about how, technically speaking, now that we have this key, this one, number 15, then that must mean that, and I think this is the case with some of these visual novels with flowcharts that I see. It means that essentially Haruaki went through this ending here, you know, and he died, of course, and that meant he started way back in the beginning on his bike again, right? And then he must have done everything exactly the same all the way to get back to here.
春明様は
Sorry. I think that's what it means, technically speaking. And I find that, for some reason, I just find that kind of funny, you know? Like, we don't really get to see that because we just skip through the chart, and so we don't really think about it that much. But for me, I just imagine putting yourself in Haruaki's shoes, right? Like, you've learned, okay, so Chiemi and Mochi and Mami are the wolves, and I need to get back to this place where I can actually do something about it. And so you have to, you know, like, really imagine you're Haruaki here. You have to redo all of your, even if you can remember all the decisions you made, you'd have to act as, you know, basically the same too. Like, when talking to people, you'd have to speak the same things, speak in the same way, do the same actions, do them at the same time that you did them before, you know? And I just find that, like, I can't help but think I would screw up, you know, so easily trying to do the same thing over again, you know? I don't know, just a random thought I had. But yeah, so next time we will attempt to avert our grim fates. We will presumably team up with Rokako and try to figure out a way to stop the upcoming massacre. So I hope they can do it. But yeah, in any case, I feel like this has been pretty good. We had a nice chat in the beginning, and we did some housekeeping. So I think this has been a little break from the craziness of last time and the potential craziness of next time. Okay, I've been The Worm. This has been Raging Loop. Hope to see you next time for something potentially very special. See you then.